There is a sentence written in the 4th century that's never been improved upon. A bishop in North Africa, writing in Latin, addressed these words directly to God. Thou hast made for thyself, O Lord, and our heart is restless until it rests in thee. That sentence is 1600 years old. And if you have ever felt the particular ache of wanting something you cannot name, of achieving what you were chasing only to find it hollow, or being surrounded by everything you thought you wanted and still feeling strangely alone, then that sentence is about you. The man who wrote it spent 30 years trying to outrun it. His name was Augustine of Hippo, and his story is one of the most honest, most human, most theologically profound in all of Christian history. It begins with a pear tree. Welcome back to the series. We have been walking through the figures who shaped the early church, from the Council of Nicaea to Athanasius and his 5 exiles, and now to the man who took the theology they defended and built an entire intellectual civilization around it, Augustine of Hippo, born 354 AD, died 430 AD, and still in many ways not finished speaking. Augustine was born in 354 AD in a town of Thagaste, a small Roman provincial settlement in what is now northeastern Algeria, roughly 60 miles inland from the Mediterranean coast. It was not a glamorous beginning. Thagaste was a backwater, a town that had seen better days under the old Numidian kingdom. Now administered as a distant corner of a Roman empire, increasingly focused on its crumbling northern borders. His father, Patricius, was a minor Roman soldier and a pagan, a decent man by most accounts, but not a serious one. A man who enjoyed the pleasures of life without asking too many questions about its meaning. His mother, Monica, was a different story entirely. She was a devout Christian, intensely faithful, intensely present, intensely committed to the salvation of her son. She would become one of the most famous mothers in the history of the church, not because of what she accomplished herself, but because of what she refused to stop believing about her son, even when every observable fact suggested she was wrong. Augustine was brilliant from childhood. Everyone could see it. He was sent to school in the nearby city of Manduros, and then, when a wealthy patron stepped in to fund his education, to Carthage, the largest city in North Africa, a world of rhetoric and philosophy and spectacle and temptation. He arrived in Carthage at 16, and things almost immediately began to go sideways. Before we get to Carthage, we have to stop at the pear tree. Augustine was 16 years old, spending a fallow year back home in Thagaste between school terms, when he and a gang of friends did something that by any objective measure was entirely unremarkable. They stole pears from a neighbor's trees. They did not steal from them because they were hungry. The pear, Augustine admits, were not even particularly good pears. They had a few and threw the rest to pigs. He spent pages of his confessions, written in his 40s at the peak of his theological powers, analyzing these incidents. Why? Was it worth examining a petty teenage theft? His answer is disturbing in its clarity. He stole the pears, he concluded, not for the pears, not for any rational gain, not because he wanted something the pears could give him. He stole them for the sheer pressure of doing something wrong. The wrongness was the point. This transgression itself was the thrill. He called it a law for evil, for evil's own sake, and he spent years trying to understand what it revealed about the human will, about the capacity of a person to choose destruction for no reason other than the freedom to choose it. This is not a man catastrophizing a youthful mistake. This is a theologian using his whole experience as raw materials for one of the most penetrating analyses of human nature ever written. And he set the stage for everything that followed. Carthage hit Augustine like a wave. It was one of the greatest cities of the late Roman world. Loud, cosmopolitan, intellectually alive, morally chaotic. There were theaters, philosophers, crowds, ambition in here. Augustine loved it. He threw himself into his studies of rhetoric with genuine talent and genuine passion. He was by all accounts an extraordinary student, the kind of mind that makes other gifted people feel slightly inadequate, but he was also 17, in a city designed to consume 17 years old, and he had arrived without the kind of inner formation that might have helped him navigate it. He entered into a relationship with a woman, her name he never recorded in his confessions, a deliberate omission that has intrigued scholars ever since. She was not his wife. In Roman legal terms, she was a concubine, a socially accepted form of partnership for a man of his class who was not yet married for a formal marriage. He was 17. She gave birth to his son. Augustine named the boy Adeodatus, in Latin, gift of God. The name is one of the most quietly poignant details in the entire confessions. He was not married to this woman. He was a teenager in a pagan city, and he named his illegitimate son gift of God. Something in him knew there was a God to whom gift could be attributed, even while everything in his life was running in the opposite direction. He would live with this woman faithfully by the standards of the day for over a decade. He would send her away eventually, not out of moral weakening, but out of career pragmatism. It is one of the episodes in the confessions he described with the most pain and the least justification. But that is later. In Carthage, Augustine studied, he excelled. He read a dialogue by Cicero called Hortensius, now lost, and it awakened in him a hunger for truth, for wisdom, for something more than comfort and status. He turned briefly towards Christianity his mother had raised him near, and found it, in his estimation, intellectually unsatisfying. So he turned instead towards a sect that promised him something better. The Manicheans were not by ancient standard a fringe group. They were a sophisticated, internationally organized religious movement founded by Persian prophets named Mani in the 3rd century. They had followers from Persia to North Africa to Rome. Their basic idea was elegant. The universe is a battleground between two equal eternal forces, light and darkness, good and evil. The human soul is a spark of divine light trapped in a world of matter, which is inherently evil. Salvation comes through knowledge, gnosis, that liberates the soul from its material prison. For a young intellectual wrestling with the problem of evil, wrestling with the question of why a good God would allow suffering, why his own will kept pulling him towards things he knew were destructive, Manicheanism had answers that felt satisfying. It also conveniently absolved him of moral responsibility. If evil is an external cosmic force, and your body is made of matter that belongs to the dark side, then the things your body does are not quite your fault. Augustine enjoyed them. He would remain a Manichean for 9 years. He was not an idle member. He recruited others, he converted friends, he debated opponents. He was in his way a true believer. And then slowly, the intellectual cracks began to show. He waited years to meet Faustus, the great Manichean bishop, widely celebrated as the movement's greatest mind. When Faustus arrived, Augustine peppered him with the hard questions that had been accumulating. He found Faustus charming, eloquent, and entirely unable to answer anything that mattered. The disappointment was decisive. He did not convert to Christianity immediately. He drifted instead towards philosophical skepticism, the ancient school that argued nothing can be known with certainty. He left Carthage for Rome, seeking a better teaching post. He found Rome students clever but dishonest. They attended your lectures and then transferred schools before paying their fees. He moved on to Milan. In Milan, he found Bishop Ambrose. Ambrose, the Bishop of Milan, was one of the most formidable men in the 4th century church. Administrator, theologian, orator, political operator, a man who had stood up to emperors and won. He was in every external sense everything Augustine admired. Augustine went to hear him preach, initially not for spiritual reasons, but as a professional student of rhetoric, studying technique. How does a man hold a crowd? How does he structure an argument? How does he move an audience? What Augustine found was that Ambrose was not just a skilled rhetorician. He was answering the very objections to Christianity that Augustine had been carrying for years. The intellectual embarrassment, the apparent contradiction, the crude liberalism that had put young Augustine off. Ambrose read scripture allegorically, philosophically with a sophistication that Augustine had not encountered before. He could not stop listening. He also encountered during these million years the Latin translations of the Neoplatonic philosophers, particularly Plotinus. The Platonists gave Augustine a framework for thinking about God that was genuinely non-material, a being of pure intellect, of pure goodness, utterly beyond a physical cosmos. This was not the crude anthropomorphic deity he had rejected as a young man. This was something he could take seriously. And someone else in Milan, watching all of this with fierce, hopeful attention, his mother. Monica had followed Augustine to Milan. This requires a moment of consideration. This was the 4th century. Travel was arduous, dangerous, and expensive. Monica was a widow, a woman of modest means, from a provincial African town. She crossed the Mediterranean to follow a 30-year-old son who had not asked her to come and was not living in a way she approved of. She prayed for him constantly. For years, she had famously received encouragement from a bishop early in Augustine's wanderings, and the bishop told her that the son of so many tears could not perish. She held on to these words through everything. She had watched him join the Manicheans. She had watched him take a concubine. She had watched him send a woman away and immediately take another. She had watched him drift through skepticism and Neoplatonism and every intellectual way station between Thagaste and Milan. She never stopped praying, and in Milan, she began to see something shift. Augustine was listening to Ambrose. He was reading the Platonist. He was reading, for the first time seriously, the letters of Paul. He had reached a point intellectually where he could no longer find good reasons to reject Christianity. His problem was no longer his mind. His problem was his will. He knew by this point what he should do. He could not make himself do it. The habit of years, the pleasures, the patterns, the deep grooves worn into his character by decades of choosing himself held him fast. He wrote about this movement with devastating honesty. He had prayed for years, the prayer he was ashamed of. Lord, make me chaste, but not yet. Not yet. In the late summer of 386 AD, Augustine was 31 years old in Milan and falling apart. A friend named Poticanius visited and told him about a book he had been reading, The Life of Antonio of the Desert, written by Athanasius of Alexandria. 2 of Poticanius' companions had read it and on the spot decided to abandon their careers and give their life to God. Their fiancés, hearing of this, had made the same decision. Augustine listened, and something in the story broke something open in him. He went out into the garden of the house where they were staying, alone, and there, under a fig tree, 31 years of running came apart. He wept, not politely, violently, with everything that had been held back. All the distance he had maintained between himself and God came crashing down at once. He had no defenses left, and then he heard a voice. Whether it was a child playing nearby or something else, he could not be certain, but he heard from somewhere beyond the garden wall a sing-song chant repeating the same phrase. Tolle, Lege, Tolle, Lege. Take up and read, take up and read. He ran back to where he had left his copy of Paul's letters. He opened it at random. His eyes fell on the letter to the Romans, chapter 13. Not in carousing and drunkenness, not in sexual immorality and sensuality, not in quarreling and jealousy, but put on the Lord Jesus Christ and make no provision for the flesh to gratify its desires. He wrote later, I neither wish nor needed to read further. Instantly, as the sentences ended, there was infused in my heart something like the light of full certainty, and all the gloom of doubt vanished away. The running was over. He was baptized the following Easter, April 24th, 387 AD, by Bishop Ambrose in Milan. His mother, Monica, was there. She had been waiting for this moment for 30 years. She died a few months later, at peace, at the port of Ostia, As they were preparing to sail back to Africa, Augustine's account of her death, their last conversation together about the nature of heaven, sitting at a window overlooking the sea, is one of the most beautiful passages in the literature of the ancient world. Augustine returned to Africa. He founded a small monastic community. He was ordained as a priest, not entirely willingly. He was visiting a church in Hippo when the bishop pointed him out of the congregation as a candidate, and as one account put it, willing hands dragged him forward. He was consecrated Bishop of Hippo in 395 AD and would hold that office for the remaining 35 years of his life. What he produced in those years is staggering. Augustine left a catalogue that contains 113 books, 218 letters, and 500 sermons. He was one of the most prolific writers in the entire ancient world. His Confessions, written around 397 AD, is considered the first autobiography in Western literature. It is widely seen as an influential model for Christian writers throughout the Middle Ages, and Henry Chadwick described as ranking among the greatest masterpieces of Western literature. Every memoir, every conversion narrative, every first-person account of spiritual searching writings, all of them stand in the shadow of Confessions. Then, in 410 AD, something happened that shook the entire Roman world. The Visigoths sacked Rome. The entire city, the city that stood for over 1,000 years, the city that defined civilization itself, was ransacked by barbarian forces. Pagan immediately blamed the Christians. Rome had abandoned its gods, and now the gods had abandoned Rome. Augustine spent the next 14 years writing his answer. The city of God was written after Rome had been sacked by invaders led by Alaric, the Visigoth. It is a reply to those who said that the Roman Empire was falling apart because the Christians had taken over. It discusses the work of God in history and the relation between the Christian as citizen of an earthly commonwealth and the Christian as citizen of heaven. It is a masterwork of political theology. The argument that no earthly empire, however great, is the final home of humanity. That history moves towards something beyond Rome, that the city of God is not built with stone or sustained by armies. Augustine also developed through his battles against the Pelagian heresy, the church's deepest account of grace and human freedom, the theology that would later fuel the Protestant Reformation, shape Luther and Calvin, and still drive some of the most important theological debates happening today. He did not live to see the fall of the Western Roman Empire, but he felt it coming. The Vandals were besieging Hippo as he lay dying. He died on August 28, 430 AD, at the age of 76. He had asked for the penitential psalms to be written on a wall of his room so he could read them from his bed in his final days. Augustine had been dead for 1600 years, and he still describes you. He describes the person who knows what they should do and cannot make themselves do it. He describes the person who achieves what they were chasing and finds it does not satisfy. He describes the person who has tried philosophy, tried pleasure, tried success, tried religion as a system, and still fills the gap. He gave that gap a name. He called it restlessness. And he said it is not a malfunction. It is a sign, a pointer built into the human soul, pointing towards the only thing that can finally feel it. One of Augustine's most famous quotes is from Confessions. Thou hast made for thyself, O Lord, and our heart is restless until it find its rest in thee. He knew what he was talking about. He has spent 30 years verifying it personally. The reason Augustine endures is not just that he was brilliant, though he was. It is not just that he was prolific, though the output is staggering. It was that he wrote from the inside. He did not write about the human condition from a comfortable distance. He wrote from the middle of it, confused, driven, reaching, failing, and finally, in a garden in Milan, found. The story is not a story about a saint who was always saintly. It is a story about a person who was lost for a very long time and what it looked like when he was finally located. This is why people are still reading him this is why you should too. Next in this series, we are staying in North Africa, but we are moving towards several centuries and west along the coast. We are going to look at what happens when the Christianity that Athanasius defended, that Augustine systematized, encounters a world it never anticipated. We are going to talk about the rise of Islam, the fall of the Western Church in North Africa, and the extraordinary story of how the faith that Augustine built his life around nearly disappeared from the continent that gave it three of its greatest minds. And it's a story almost nobody tells. We tell it. Subscribe so you don't miss it, and turn on the notification button. And if Augustine's Confession is something you have never read, the link is in the description. It's one of the few books you will read that feels somehow like it was written about you. See you next time.